Cattywampus, bumfuzzle, argle-bargle. Not really a sentence. Deadpool 2 is like the Canadian version of Couples Retreat with slightly less Small and Ackerman. More like Sugar Ray's Every Morning, but with slightly more Mark McGrath.
Hey man, welcome back to my place for the weekend binge, where I see what movies are coming out in theaters and make a fun little list of movies we can binge on Netflix or Amazon. I have my partner here, A-Man the DJ.
What's up?
We had our first episode last week and obviously we kind of killed it, so I think he's gonna be my new co-host moving forward.
I'm back.
It's a good idea, right? Yeah. So before we get to it, actually wanted to ask you how you felt about the passing of Stan Lee.
Man, super hurt. I think all of us nerds, that hit hard. Like it's like the Godfather of nerdism. It's like if you have Stan, George Lucas, I mean, all these people are like the reasons that we're here, the reasons that we're talking about the culture, the reason I have this shirt on. Mm-hmm. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time, so I love the X-Men as well, so yeah.
Nah.
Definitely.
I feel you. I mean, the fact that this dude created a superhero for us, created Black Panther as a character that he's like, look, black people don't have a lot of representation. They don't have a lot of characters that they can look up to. I'm gonna make a character that is regal, is smart, is the richest dude in the world, literally the craziest character imaginable, but again, he made that first because he knew that there's really not that many superheroes that are out there. And if they are, they might be gimmicky, they might be this, they might be that. So thank you, Stan Lee. We'll never ever forget you.
Yeah, he was great at making all the characters feel real. Like they all had like tendencies that you might have, so you can find them to be relatable. Like Spider-Man's a nerdy kid. Mm-hmm. Even Black Panther's like you don't necessarily live that life, but he brought that to life so well where you're like, okay, this is what it would be like to be a king, and he talked about heroes that you might not necessarily see, like you said, and yeah, man. But what a life, 95.
95 years old.
I couldn't imagine being amazing. 95 and being able to see everything that I doodled back in the day come to life in such a big way. So yeah, shout out to Stan Lee.
All right, yep. And on that, we go to Creed 2, which is coming out this weekend. Let's take a look.
The world's favorite adventurer is back for more.
Mick! Yeah. You're back! Yeah. No. Not Crocodile Dundee 2, though Paul Hogan was the truth. I said Creed 2. Let's take a look at this trailer.
We got this.
Damn, this looks good. Like, really good.
In the ring, you got rules. Outside, we got nothing. Life hits you with all these cheap shots. People like me, we live in the past.
Sly is still brooding.
You got people that
Creed got a baby now. I see them stakes.
You got everything to lose. This guy's got nothing to lose.
I ain't got a choice.
That's the same thing your father said, and he died right here in my hands.
I was afraid I couldn't live up to these expectations.
I got this without you a new weapon. I don't contemplate, I meditate. Then off your head. This that bullet against the bed. This that I got.
It may not seem like it now, but this is more than just a fight.
Loyalty.
And is that the new Drago? Damn, that dude is a beast.
I got.
Woo!
Hey.
Yeah, that's gonna be good.
Yeah, I'm amped.
Oh man,
I'm excited.
I mean, you know from a very good source that this is probably gonna be better than the first one. I can't tell you what that source is, but very excited to see this movie. What about you? What do you think about the trailer?
I'm super excited. The trailer looks great. We happen to know the director, so of course we're happy for him. And I think what's great about these Rocky films is just the emotion that is entered into the. When you think about a fight is such an emotional thing. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, especially a fight that you know is coming. You gotta get mentally prepared, get physically prepared. The first one actually, I cried. There was a scene where he was running, it was the dirt bikes, and they brought the dirt bikes to Rocky in this house, and he was like, man, it was like just all the emotion that's wrapped up in these films.
Oh, when he was running, and he was like, come on, Hulk, and he's
and
like,
all the dirt
yeah,
bikes stuff out of him.
Yeah, that was good.
I was really like, I'm like, what?
No, that's just pure emotion. and that's what's great about this movie is thinking it's like, where do they go? Where do they go from the first movie? He's already the champion, so what is there for him to fight for? Which I think is genius. Is like, so what do you fight for when you've won it all? Like, how do you continue to kind of like have that drive when you've won it?
Yeah.
What keeps you going? So yeah, I can't wait to see it. And so for this week, I was thinking, let's look at some other sequels that are better than the first one. You know what I'm saying?
Good.
And of course, everybody has done these before: Spider-Man 2, X-Men 2, all these types. So I wanted to do something a little bit different, some movies that might not necessarily be on the list. So first up this week, I'm thinking we look at the second entry in the Xenomorph saga, Aliens. Aliens is a sequel to the highly successful movie Alien, directed by a little guy named Ridley Scott. And when the time came to make a second one, the producers actively courted another little guy in the game named James Cameron. Now, they thought they were never going to do a second Alien until James Cameron came in and had a perfect pitch for them. Coming off the hot Terminator movie, James was tasked with writing and directing the sequel to Alien, bringing along some of his friends from the Terminator, including the guy that played Kyle Reese, Michael Biehn, as well as the guy who he originally wanted to play the Terminator, Lance Henriksen. And though Aliens is a direct sequel to Alien, it couldn't be more different. Taking place some 57 years after the events of the first film, we have main character Ripley waking up from sleep stasis to an entirely new world. And only having revenge and murder on her mind, Ripley accompanies a group of Marines to the moon where she had left the Xenomorphs with the intention of killing all the aliens and hopefully wiping them out. And where the first film was more of a horror film in space, building tension as the Xenomorphs hunted down each and every victim, creating a sense of dread and claustrophobia, the sequel opted to play more towards Cameron's strengths, which is action, cool set pieces, and dope gadgets and miniatures. Now we have a group of heavily armed Marines with all kinds of cool weapons and firepower, ready to fuck up all these big-headed aliens, and in many ways, this feels like the Alien movie we always wanted, since you realize much of what Ridley did in the first film was more from budgetary limitations than anything. I actually really like the second Aliens because I felt like the type of story that it is, it kind of needed more of an action bent to it, which I think James Cameron was able to bring to it. He was able to bring all his gadgets and everything. But what did you think? Did you like the first one better or the second one?
First one was what I liked better.
Okay, okay.
I liked the first one just because it just felt like it got to the point, and I kind of like how it ended. It ended like you might not necessarily need another one, but it's like it was still. It
was more contained.
The series was done so well that it's like, yeah, we want more, and I think it did so well that they're like, oh, we got to make some more of these movies and explain what's next.
Yeah.
So yeah, and Sigourney is like, we got to get rid of all of them.
Yeah. and I think that's what I liked about it. Is like the first film presented this really horrific situation with these things, these aliens, and then the second one. Now this is a deleted scene. She wakes up after like 57 years, and she actually finds out that her daughter recently died, right before she woke up. Which I think would have been an amazing scene to keep in there because it really gives us like what she's doing. The reason why she's like, I'm just gonna go and kill all these aliens is because her whole life that she had was no longer there. And then the whole thing with Newt later makes sense. Why they have such a connection, because in a way, she sees Newt as her surrogate daughter that she never had. Right. So I loved all of that. And it's fascinating to think because it seems that after the second Aliens, or after Aliens, it became more of a action franchise and less about the horror. Do you think it should stay as a horror franchise?
No, I think it's good as I like it. I like both.
You like both?
The horror I think works for the first one because we're like, what is going on? But now when you come to the second one, we're like, all right, we got to go get them. So it's like let's amp it up, which is a lot of times people don't do. It stays horror and we're always scared. But I like how Aliens takes it and be like, nah, we're gonna fight back.
And the other weird thing that's interesting, because it's like, it's built-in scary. You have this alien that spits out acid. It's got this huge bulbous looking head. It looks really creepy, and it's got this thing that comes out of its mouth. But I remember reading somewhere that said that the alien itself represented like the fear of male rape because of the fact that it could just like stick this thing out and penetrate anything or anyone. It was kind of weird, interesting. Have you heard about that?
No, I haven't heard about that, but that is frightening.
Yeah.
And the aliens are very scary. So even while it's being an action film, I think you're still kind of scared because
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know what to do if they ran up on me.
Exactly.
Tentacles and acid, blood. It's like, damn, that's not fair.
Yeah. Yeah. And then they had the Queen in the second one. It was just all bad. Oh man. All right. Well, going from another planet on another moon, we come back to Earth, to an Earth that has been run over by apes. So we're going to be looking at the reboot of the Apes franchise, the second one in that reboot, which is Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, which is a sequel to Rise of the Planet of the Apes. Oh yeah, that's just gets us nice and ready for this. All right. When the Planet of the Apes franchise was rebooted with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, most were surprised with how well the reboot captured the politics of the original franchise whilst being something totally new unto itself. And most wondered, where was the second film going to go? We know that this is building to an eventual Planet of the Apes, but how? Matt Reeves takes over for Rupert Wyatt on the second film, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, stripping away any of the human characters that we may have grown to love in the first film, and shows us that this film series is not about the humans, it's about the apes, which we see by spending the majority of the opening 10 minutes inside the apes' camp as they live their lives as humans would, teaching, loving, and making ends meet for their respective families. The world by this point has become post-apocalyptic, with 1 in 5 people surviving the simian flu that has wiped out damn near all of humanity. And once we spend time with the humans, we see just how much more civilized the apes are than the struggling humans. And that is what is so great about this movie. It really follows through with this concept, a world with apes, and just how that would come to fruition. We also have the fantastic character of Koba, played by Toby Kebbell, who's played another ape, well, a big ape in Kong. Here he plays an ape that was formerly tested on by humans who is hell-bent on killing all humans he sees. He is a perfect example of someone going through a traumatic experience only to have it color their behavior later in life. Whether constructive or self-destructive, you understand the choices of all involved and why, by the end, there will have to be an unavoidable war between man and ape. What I love about this movie is the world that they create. I mean, you have the first film, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, which gives us Caesar, gives us an ape that obviously has some genetically engineered brain that makes them smart, that gives us the beginnings of how the apes are going to take over. But we have to figure out how they're going to take over. And the second movie just basically is like, well, there's a flu that basically kills off all the humans that was created by the apes, which was genius because now we see the groundwork. We see that it's not really about the humans, it's really about the apes and their story and how they become more human-like, right? What did you think?
Yeah, because if we go back to the original, we were like slaves. We were like, we trying to, so it's like, it really leads, so if you go into this series knowing that, you'll be like, all right, it's not gonna go good for us at all. You already know that, so this is the groundwork of how they got us out of there, so yeah. This one was dope. You got to see how Koba was leading this rebellion, and then you got Caesar was like, well, the humans kind of cool, like Franco was the homie, so yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
So,
no, it was great.
fun.
It was perfect. It was a perfect kind of entry for the franchise that we're seeing, leading us to the War of the Planet of the Apes. And the movie ends basically knowing that war is going to be inevitable. So yeah, it was really good. So next up on the list, going from a world filled with apes, we're going to go down to Mexico to a guy that has guns in his guitar case. Desperado. When Desperado first came out back in the early 90s, most people were just enamored by the long-haired Antonio Banderas fucking up shit in a small Mexican town, carrying a guitar case filled with guns whilst wooing the ever-beautiful Salma Hayek. But what many people may not have known at the time was that this movie was a sequel to writer-director Robert Rodriguez's small indie film El Mariachi. That film followed a mariachi player who becomes embroiled in a world of assassins and drugs. Being mistaken for a hitman that carries guns inside of a suitcase, the El Mariachi survives a terrible ordeal whilst also getting shot in the hand and witnessing the death of the woman he loves. Desperado picks up some time after El Mariachi, with the mariachi player now assuming the identity of the hitman he was mistaken for, seeking out the people that caused the death of his loved one. What follows is a balls-to-the-wall, bullets and guns extravaganza with dudes that throw knives, Steve Buscemi playing a character named Buscemi, Cheech Marin, and tons of crazy but fun shit like this. And this. With the concept as bonkers as a mariachi player with a guitar case filled with guns, it always needed to be more of a heightened experience as opposed to a smaller, grounded indie. And Desperado had this in spades.
Right, get him.
Wow. First thing that I got to notice about this movie, after watching it over again, Antonio had the original Scorpion jacket. Nicholas Winding Refn, you stole that shit. Anyways, all right, so Desperado, what I loved about it is that it took a concept that was already kind of crazy. You got this dude who's a mariachi that comes into a Mexican town, is mistaken for a hitman, who also carries around a guitar case filled with guns, and then all hell breaks loose. And then the second movie is the mariachi dude assuming the identity of the hitman and then basically becoming a hitman himself. I think that in order for the second one to be successful, it needed to be a balls to the wall, crazy, gun-filled extravaganza, because the first one was more so kind of like a small indie movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, for sure. I think like most people, I saw Desperado first, and with a little research, saw the mariachi. And the mariachi was, you know, it's kind of a similar story. It's revenge, it's people getting shot, you know. So this was one of my favorite movies of all time. Just visually, it was like everything clicked. The music, visuals, Salma Hayek just looking great, you know. Yeah, one of the things that's like, one of my things about this movie is that he has his brothers come in and they just all get killed. Like, damn.
There's so much just hilarious, just random. Yo, you have a character named Buscemi, played by Steve Buscemi.
Oh, yeah,
give no
Buscemi,
fucks.
Yeah, Buscemi was great.
This is the beginnings of Robert Rodriguez. That we get
Yes.
to see kind of like the genius that eventually became, you know, Sin City, the Spy Kids franchise. You know, this dude, you know, has become a staple. And he's got a new movie coming out actually in a couple weeks called Alita Battle Angel. So,
Yeah.
looking forward to it. All right, here we go. So my neighbor, she made some food last night. She said I could have some. She's always been very nice with leftovers because she knows that I don't cook that much, which is, I know, obviously sad. But some good leftovers. This is, you know, 0.0 or 2.0, right? So I'm not sure exactly what this is, but it looks good.
Yeah.
You down?
Yeah, I'm down. They
All right, let's see
kind of
what we
look
got.
like, they look like donut holes from here. I don't know.
This is definitely some donut hole thing. I'm not sure. She went to like a Diwali festival, so I think it's like Indian sweets. I
Okay.
think I'm assuming. So you know,
with it.
it's a good little snack. 2.0.
Sweets.
There you go.
Gracias.
You're welcome.
Right.
All right. So next up on the list, we go from a guy that's essentially playing a superhero in Desperado to a guy that is a superhero with America in his name. Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Ah, Captain America. Captain America, the Winter Soldier was a shock to many when it first came out. It blew the first film out the water in such a way that most people skip that first entry and start the story of Captain America with the second film. Why? Well, the first film did show us Steve Rogers pre-beefcake, and seeing Chris Evans play Steve as a bright-eyed skinny man who has the heart and soul of a warrior was a good way to establish whom Rogers will eventually become. Problem is that it took place in the 50s and just had a whole lot of historical aspects that made the film hard to fully connect with. We just wanted to see Steve in the modern day fucking up shit with the likes of Tony Stark. And that's what we got with Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Well, maybe not fucking up shit with Tony, but we were able to see Cap in modern times, of course out of his element, being that he was frozen in ice for 50 years, needing to play catch up. Beyond the fun of that, we also get a story filled with some ice-cold political intrigue, a story that could double as a warning about things like homeland security and just how far governmental entities might take this idea. We are also introduced to Falcon, as well as the Winter Soldier, played by Cap's best bud, Bucky Barnes. And boy does he show us why he's a feared adversary. There are just so many amazing action set pieces. The adrenaline is palpable and keeps pumping, like in this scene. Please tell me you caught the little Easter egg that was there at the end. You didn't catch that? All right. On his gravestone, it said, "The path of the righteous man," which is a quote directly from Pulp Fiction, from when Jules said that quote to, remember that at the very beginning of the movie?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's actually not a real quote from a Bible. Quentin Tarantino essentially made up that whole Bible verse. It's not real.
Oh, I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. Yeah, I know, right? All right. Now, here's the thing about the Winter Soldier. The reason why I like it so much more is that whenever I am doing like a, I guess, for lack of a better word, binge of all the Marvel movies, I usually skip the first one and I go straight to the Winter Soldier. Just feels like it's more action-packed. It takes place in the modern day.
Yep.
Doesn't give us this whole World War, whatever, thing. It feels like this is how the story of Captain America should start. What do you think?
This one's more fun. I like the pop, and then it just kind of gets right to the point. But what I do like about the original is the fact that you get that like origin. Like I think there's a lot of people who had no idea Captain America is not even of this time. So of course you got to get that out the way. But yeah, this one is definitely more fun to just watch.
Exactly.
Yeah, you don't get it.
Yeah, and what I loved about it is like this is when I started seeing that Marvel really wanted to go deep. They got political with it. This is essentially about Homeland Security.
Yeah.
So this is how I knew that they had the capacity to do something that like eventually became Black Panther. Like they're not scared to do something that has some politics to it, which is good. Yeah. Did you like that aspect of it?
Which sticks to what Marvel has always been about. Is like even in the comics they have a way of kind of almost satiring what's going on in the real world and talking about it in a way that is safe, because it's like, oh, it's in the comic book, but then you read it, you're like, oh, this is actually going on.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
Maybe we should do something about this. So, yeah, for sure.
Going back again to Brother Stan Lee, who was always, conscientious of what's going on in the world and bringing that into the comic books, which has been great. So we're gonna go from a super family that has all these powerful people to just a very weird family with the Addams Family. The Addams Family Values, which is the second movie. The Addams Family has been in so many different mediums, from comic books to cartoons to movies and television. And their foray into film is likely their most memorable, with leads Gomez and Morticia, played by heavyweights Raul Julia, rest in peace, and Angelica Houston. These two actors fit so perfectly into this macabre world of a very dark, anti-nuclear family that just always seems to have murder on their mind. We also had Christina Ricci as a poster child for emo kids everywhere, and Chris Lloyd as Uncle Fester. And the film did an amazing job with introducing us to this odd family and world, showing us how cluelessly scary they are in their own right, whilst also being dedicated family members that would do anything for each other. The second film picks up with a new babysitter joining the family after Pugsley and Wednesday try to kill their newborn brother. And what's fun is that this babysitter, played by Joan Cusack, is actually a serial killer who seduces Uncle Fester in order to kill him and take all his money. Even though she's played as white and harmless and unassuming, she's actually more dark and evil than our ghoulish leads. We also have Wednesday and Pugsley going to a summer camp with tons of fun set pieces and interactions like this.
Children, can't stop it! You're destroying my text!
And this. The second film takes our family out of their large mansion and has them play in the real world. Man, it's crazy to think about this movie now, like with how much like these kids are trying to like murder their like little brother and stuff. It's just like they're all about like murder and death and just macabre shit.
Kids.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, no, I loved it because we established this family that's crazy, that's dark, that wears all black all the time. But then we bring in this other character, Joan Cusack, who when we see her, she seems like this bubbly person. She's gonna be the babysitter. But it turns out that she's actually the real crazy one. She's the psycho. She's the one who's trying to basically, get Fester to fall in love with her so she can kill him later. So I love that it had that aspect of it. It's like the anti-nuclear family.
Yeah, and then like the thing about the Addams Family is like they're still a family. Like whenever someone tries to like take them out, they're like, no, at the end we're crazy, but like we still love each other.
Exactly.
In this weird way.
Yeah.
So they still stick up for each other.
In a sense, like they represent kind of like what families should be. Even though they have this craziness to them, they have this kind of like connection. It's like, you know, obviously they're down for each other with anything that they're doing, which is honestly, you know, kind of cool.
Yeah.
You know, especially
Admirable.
for this. Very admirable. That's all the binging that we can do for the week. If you'd like to continue the binge, here's a few other sequels that are better than the first.
Except you. Who are you?
I keep feeling something terrible is about to happen.
I would never let anything happen to you.
It's about to get very cold in here.
Some kind of connection, right?
Yeah, me too.
Great. So listen, here's the deal. This is what we should do. You should get off the train with me here in Vienna and come check out the town. We just got into Vienna today, and we're looking for something fun to do. Sprechen Sie English?
Yeah, of course, yeah. Could you speak German for a change?
Ladies and gentlemen, fasten your seatbelts.
And here's where you can find all the movies that I've mentioned on this list. And that is it for this week. Next week, we'll be unveiling the new Binge 2.0. See you later.